welcome back to my vlog with me, just Jenny. It's Halloween. Happy Halloween. Whatever you do, celebrate it wisely this year, of course, and safely with social distancing. I don't really celebrate Halloween, to be honest. I don't really know why, I just never really have. But this year I thought I'd do something a little bit different, and this is kind of a bit different to what I do on my channel anyway. But lots of you asked me to read a story for Halloween. And so I just thought, why not read a story to you guys for Halloween? You asked for it, you wanted me to do it, so here I am going to do it for you. I have two stories I thought I'd read you for Halloween. The first one is one of my all-time favourites. It's a classic story. It's Funny Bones. Does anyone remember that from primary school, nursery? I love it. So I'm actually going to read it. I have the book here with me. And this is a 40th edition with a glow-in-the-dark cover, which is super cool. And then I'm going to read you another story straight after, but I'll save that for a little surprise a little later on. So let's get into the story. This is Funny Bones. This is how the story begins. On a dark, dark hill, there was a dark, dark town. In the dark, dark town, there was a dark, dark street. In the dark, dark street, there was a dark, dark house. In the dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark staircase. Down the dark, dark staircase, there was a dark, dark cellar. And in the dark cellar, some skeletons lived. There was a big skeleton, a little skeleton, and a dog skeleton. One night, the big skeleton sat up in bed. He scratched his skull. "What shall we do tonight?" he said. "Let's take the dog for a walk," said the little skeleton, "and frighten somebody." "Good idea," the big skeleton said. So, the big skeleton, the little skeleton, and the dog skeleton left the dark, dark cellar, climbed the dark, dark staircase, and stepped out into the dark, dark street. They walked past the houses and the shops. They walked past the zoo and the police station. They went into the park. The big skeleton scratched his skull. "What shall we do now?" he said. "Let's play on the swings," said the little skeleton, "and throw a stick for the dog and frighten somebody." "Good idea," the big skeleton said. So the big skeleton, the little skeleton, and the dog skeleton walked round the dark, dark pond, past the dark, dark tennis courts, and up to the dark, dark swings. The big skeleton and the little skeleton played on the swings. They threw a stick for the dog. Suddenly, something happened. The dog skeleton chased the stick, tripped over a park bench, and bumped into a tree. Woof! And ended up as a little pile of bones. "Look at that," the big skeleton said. "He's all come to pieces." "Let's put him together again," the little skeleton said. So the big skeleton and the little skeleton put the dog skeleton together again. They sang a song while they did it. The toe bone's connected to the foot bone's connected to the leg bone's connected to the hip bone, and the hip bone's connected to the backbone. Then they got mixed up. "Is that the toe bone?" the little skeleton said. "Where does this one go?" said the big skeleton. Uh-oh. When they'd finished, the big skeleton said, "That dog looks a bit funny to me." "So he does," said the little skeleton. "We've got his tail on the wrong end, and his head." "Woof," said the dog skeleton. He's all muddled up, look. At last, the dog was properly put back together again, and the big skeleton and the little skeleton sang another song. Uh-oh. These bones can bark again, can run around in the park again, can frighten people in the dark again. The big skeleton scratched his skull. That reminds me, he said. We forgot to frighten somebody. Let's do it on the way home then, said the little skeleton. Good idea, said the big skeleton. I wish we had a nice little boy to frighten. I wish we had a nice little old lady. So the big skeleton and the little skeleton and the dog skeleton left the dark, dark swings, went out into the dark, dark town and tried to frighten somebody. The trouble was, there wasn't anybody. Everybody was in bed. Even the policemen in the police station were in bed. Even the animals in the zoo. Of course, the skeleton animals were awake. Lots of little animals there. Let's have a ride on the elephant skeleton, the little skeleton said. Let's have a word with the parrot skeleton. The big skeleton scratched his skull. Let's keep out of the way of the crocodile skeleton, he said. When they were back in the street, and when they still could not find anybody to frighten, the big skeleton said, what should we do now? The little skeleton scratched his skull. Let's frighten each other, he said. That's better than nothing. Good idea, the big skeleton said. So after that, the big skeleton frightened the little skeleton frightened the big skeleton and the little skeleton frightened the dog skeleton, and the dog skeleton frightened them. Boom! They hid round corners and frightened each other. They climbed up lampposts and frightened each other. They jumped out of dustbins and frightened each other. Yep. All the way home. And that is how the story ends. On a dark, dark hill, there was a dark, dark town. And in the dark, dark town, there was a dark, dark street. In the dark, dark street, there was a dark, dark house. In the dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark staircase. Down the dark, dark staircase, there was a dark, dark cellar. And in the dark, dark cellar, some skeletons lived. And they still do. The end. I hope you enjoyed me reading Funny Bones. I do have another book for you that I'm going to read this Halloween. This is called Little Monsters, and this is by David Walliams. This is a picture book, and I really thoroughly enjoyed reading this one, so I'm going to read it for you guys because it's just beautiful, I think. Little Monsters. This is a lot heavier than this little book. Here we go. Once upon a time, there was a little werewolf with a big problem. His voice was really, really squeaky. Whenever there was a full moon, Howler howled so high. Woo! And that all the other werewolves howled with laughter. Howler hated feeling like the odd one out. So Papa Werewolf and Mama Werewolf sent their son off to monster school where he could learn how to be frightening. But Howler found the school frightening. He wasn't sure who to be more afraid of. The teachers or the pupils. They all look pretty scary, to be honest. Howler took a seat at the back of the classroom. Suddenly his teacher whooshed in on her broomstick, smashing the skeletons to pieces as she did so. Clatter! The first lesson of the day, announced Miss Spell, is how to pull a scary face. Show me your scariest one. The vampire flashed his fangs. The ghost grinned a ghoulish grin. The skeleton showed a sinister smile. All eyes turned to Howler. There's little Howler. You, snarled Miss Spell, pointing at her new pupil. You, yes, miss? Show me your scariest face, now! Look how scared he looks. The little werewolf did his best. He bulged out his eyes. He waggled his ears and stuck out his tongue. Instead of looking scary, he looked like he was blowing off. All the other little monsters hooted with laughter. You couldn't scare a fly, mocked the teacher. The second lesson of the day is spooking, announced Miss Spell in the school hall. The witch ordered the mummy to stand still with his back turned. One by one, the little monsters did their best to creep up on him. The vampire flew, the ghost bloated, and the skeleton rattled. Finally, it was Howler's turn. The little werewolf was so nervous, he tripped up over his tail, and he tumbled over and over again. Roll, thud, landing by the skeleton's feet. You couldn't scare a flea, snorted Miss Spell. Next, the teacher led the little monsters down the stone steps. The final lesson of the day is gruesome growls, she said, her voice echoing around the dark dungeon. Oh no, thought the little werewolf with the squeakiest voice. My worst nightmare. Hiss, went the vampire. Woo, went the ghost. Snarl, went the skeleton. Howler, barked the teacher. Your turn. But now, demanded the witch. She does look rather scary, doesn't she? Trembling with fear, Howler howled higher than ever. Woo! Howler, bowled Miss Spell. You couldn't scare a nit. You're a disgrace to Monster School, to the headmaster's office, at once. Howler, you will never, ever be a monster, boomed Mr. Ogre. Please, sir. You are expelled from Monster School. A tear welled in Howler's eye. Skulking back home to the forest, the werewolf spotted another group of little monsters going door to door and saying, trick or treat. These monsters were different. As he drew closer, Howler saw that they were little humans, dressed up as monsters. It was Halloween. How cute are these costumes? Wow, cool werewolf costume, said an alien on spotting him. Are you on your own? Asked a spider. Howler nodded sheepishly. None of the kids realised Howler was a real-life werewolf. Come and join us, said a shark. Thanks, exclaimed Howler, smiling for the first time in ages. Now, you look so scary, you can go at the front, said the alien. Howler wasn't so sure. He gulped before he knocked on the first door. Sure, he couldn't even scare a nit. Knock, knock, knock. But before the werewolf could even say trick or treat, the man at the door screamed. Ah! He threw a hail of sweets at the little monsters. The kids caught them and were over the moon. They had never had so many treats. With Howler leading the pack, the same thing happened at the house after house. Help! No! Yikes! Soon more and more little monsters from all over town joined the fun. Now he's starting to scare people, look. As no one dared to say trick to the little werewolf, there were treats for everyone. He's got lots and lots of sweets. Now it was late and they'd knocked on all the doors. The little monsters were stuffed full of sweets and ready to head home to bed. But there was still one more person Howler was determined to scare. Can you guess who? Just one more. Follow me, he said. Who do you think it'll be? Soon they had reached Monster School. When I hold up my paw, I want you all to do your loudest howl, announced Howler. All the kids grinned from ear to ear. This was going to be fun. Shh, hissed Howler as they crept into the classroom, where Miss Spell was busy marking homework. Howler raised his paw and he led them all in the loudest howl. Whoa! Ah! Screamed the teacher, shooting out of her chair. Now he's scared her, look. Whoosh! She bounced off the ceiling. Boing! She bounced off the walls. Boing, boing! And she bounced off the floor. Boing! Before bouncing right into the headmaster, who had appeared at the door. Wallop! What is the meaning of this? Thundered Mr. Ogre as the little monsters helped him up. It looks like I can scare after all, sir, replied Howler. The headmaster looked down at the crumpled witch by his feet. Miss Spell was out cold. Oh dear. Howler, I was wrong. You are scary. May I welcome you back to Monster School? The little werewolf looked round at the kids in costumes. No thanks, I'm going to stick with my new friends. All the little monsters broke out into a howl of happiness. Woohoo! What about Papa Werewolf and Mama Werewolf? They couldn't have been happier that their son was happy just being himself. Howler did go to school with his new friends. So when you are at school, have a look around your classroom. Sitting at their back, there might just be a little monster. It's cool to be the odd one out. There we go. There he is, sitting with his school friends. And that was David Walliams' Little Monsters. I hope you've had fun listening to me recite 2 Halloween stories. It is totally different from everything else I do on my channel, but you guys asked for it. So happy Halloween. Whatever you're doing today, stay safe and have fun. See you later.